Vincent French. Vincent, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me in the studio this morning.
Oh, of course. Thank you for joining us. It's very cold. This is the Rochester I know.
Not truly.
We've been spoiled the last couple months.
Yeah.
But this is what I know and what I grew up with. So it wasn't that bad for me. I actually enjoyed waiting a little bit for a car to defrost before I got it off today.
Right. Scrape that little thin ice off the window. Use my credit card. I'm like, where is my brush?
Well, yeah, that's I recently got a new vehicle, and that's the one thing I didn't get a brush in there yet. So
it ain't come with one. Man, I feel like stuff should be standard. Like, yo, we even threw in a brush.
They don't take care of you. I think about that even with the iPhones. You buy iPhones now or a phone, and used to get the whole shebang. Phones, charger, box,
everything.
All that. Now I haven't seen none of that.
I feel like at some point you're gonna have to buy the battery now too. It's like, you know what?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, we just, like I said, Crush Hour, we're having authentic conversations with people in Rochester who's doing community work and working within the communities to try to make some important change. If you could, for our listeners, just really quickly give us a quick synopsis of your journey from, kind of where you started to where you are now in your professional life.
Yeah, so that journey, it's not one thing. It's a bunch of kind of loops closing up on me, I guess, full circle moments. But, I'm not from Rochester originally. I'm raised in Rochester, but I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, in Stoughton, Mass. Shout out to my Bostonians out there. But my brothers and I, we were all adopted. The five of us, my sister Sita, the five of us were all adopted through, I kind of share this in certain spaces, but through a joint effort with Catholic Family Center in Monroe County. And we came through here. I ended up actually meeting the social worker that helped quarterback that situation, Audrey Cummings. Wonderful woman. But I had a chance to reconnect with her most recently about last year or so, discussing this very thing. But we were adopted by my mom and dad, Melinda French and Arnold French. Grew up on the northeast side of Rochester, New York. 14621. Shout out to my old neighborhood there.
Okay.
Yeah.
East side,
Hudson Ave. There's a charm in representing where you come from. It kind of reminds me of like Gladiator when he talks about where he's from and who he leads in the army and whatnot. But just going from there. But growing up in that environment, my mom ended up becoming a single mother. Raising about 11, 12 of us by herself. So shout out to all the women out there, all the quote unquote strong women out there, because that's a myth, right? Being strong black women. But, she did her best, raising us in that space, going to church and stuff. And so, from an early age, we were always part of something. It was always the French kids, like, we're going to start an usher board. The French kids are already signed up. Who's going to help them? Because it was like an army of us, And so, but we grew up in that space, and growing up in traumatic situations. I was in foster care from 3 months old till I was 8 years old. And yes, my foster care experience was wonderful. Shout out to the Randolph family, Frank and Shirley Randolph, who now live in Collierville, down in Tennessee. But they did their foundational work. And who I am today attributes heavily to my foster parents, and then also just the support from my mom, Miss French, Miss Henderson now. But falling into those spaces and growing up in the criminal element, you start looking outside yourself for external validation. Yeah. Never having anyone tell you that you don't need to fit in, nor should you try. Right. Being a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, you're gonna end up hurting yourself. The things the traps that I fell into are kind of what's happening now. I feel like today, and I know it's about me, and you can probably get to that point, but I think it's worth to be said that you don't need to fit in, nor should you try that. And time gets to make room for you in a space and place to be yourself, intentionally you, authentically you. But there I was trying to fit in, looking outside myself for external validation, and I started falling into the criminal element. Nothing crazy, just more self-destructive behavior. But each and every single time I was very fortunate to have a series of mentors, not just one or two, but like three in various spaces of my life, religious leaders growing up in church, again, the Crocker family on Columbia Avenue there at Faith, Hope, and Charity Worship Center, the whole family just pouring into me in different spaces and places. But, what allowed me to spiral up out of those situations, I was a high honor roll student, I was safety at 41, so I was all these things, Edison Tech, it became hard to function in that space because, you didn't have anyone that could validate you. I didn't necessarily have anyone to say, hey, I know you're going through this stuff. I feel like oftentimes when we have young students or young people that slip through the crack, it's like, oh, hands off. No, that's when you need to pull them in more. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's when, when someone does something wrong, you don't push them away. you pull them forward, you pull them close, you call them in. And so I think oftentimes, we see this even now where a person judges you by the worst mistake that you made on the worst day of life, and they push you away, and it's like, no, you should be pulling me closer, hold me accountable, absolutely, right? But don't exile me to a space where, I don't feel accepted, I don't feel loved, I don't feel validated. So, but the public defender's office in this space had allowed me to spiral about those situations, to realize my dream since I was 12 of wanting to be an educator. Again, I had a lot of help, a lot of people gleaning from a lot of people, and so I've always had that. And that's kind of what saved me in those spaces, was that even when I did my dirt, even when I was falling to those traps, I had people that I could glean from that saw the value in me, and so it's not just how did I get here. Obviously, you have to do the work, but I had a lot of folks. It was a village then, and people pick up the phone, like, they would do three-way just so they could talk to the village. Like, patch me through. You know what I mean? Like, what's up?
That's really important. I'm glad you shared that. That's why a lot of my work is primarily done with the youth, because there were too many people that saw something in me and wanted to make sure I didn't do the wrong thing.
Right.
Do you have? I know you mentioned your foster parents and some other individuals involved in the church, but is there one particular person or situation or instance that it was a real down to earth conversation, and it kind of this particular person, man or woman, kind of instilled some wisdom in you, and it just changed the trajectory? You saw the light, and you're like, I gotta really change and be a better adult or a better teenager, or is there one particular person in your childhood you can remember?
From my childhood, it would have to be Frank and Shirley Randolph, collective, right? Mm-hmm. And then just the Crockers. Again, it's not one person. I can't hang my hat on that one thing. Like, it was that pinnacle moment, because you don't want to start mentioning names, because then, but it's like through the journey, like the hero's journey. You have people that come. It's not one person.
That's true.
The hero's journey with Joseph Campbell talks about that in his book of A Hero of 1,000 Faces in Power of Myth. But it's not. And to make it more real, like, look at Hercules, the story, right? Or even those Greek stories, those the Odyssey, whatever. You have people that come into those spaces that pour into you, and then they bounce, or they stay for a season, and that's it. Or you might circle back, and there you are again. You made it to the finish line. I was waiting for you. It's like, no, how'd you leave and get here before I did? Like, how did that work? Take me with you, but you have to go through that journey. So it wasn't just one person, but in every space and place I was in life, whether it was in foster care, whether it was growing up in church, I continuously had people pouring into me. To the point that at some point I became the decanter or gourd, pouring into other people.
And that's really what it's about. What each one teach one.
No, truly.
Really kind of giving back. So currently you work for Morrow County, and what is your title at Morrow County?
Oh man, this is exciting. It feels like it's kind of feel like a Cinderella story for me. But again, it's that circle closing in life, right? That full circle moment. Right now, I currently serve as the diversity coordinator for the Monroe County Public Defender's Office. I'm also the internship chair for the office as well. And I also sit on the hiring committee as well. So, those were done strategically, right, to help create that pipeline, to help impact the school to prison pipeline. Virtually creating a school to career pipeline, right? A school to advocacy pipeline. You know what I mean? So, so that's what I do right now. And there's some other things that programs that we've had in the public defender's office as well too, which is helping to ensure that pipeline is strong.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
so I'm not a journalist at all, and but I do a little homework, a little research on this before.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things when I was looking at some of your profiles, and we'll get back to your current role, but one of the things that stood out to me was being the president of the Edison Tech Alumni.
Don't get me started.
No, I want to. Here's why I'm personally invested in that, because we talk about it in a couple of interviews in the past with some individuals, but I'm a big believer. One of the biggest challenges facing RCSD is how we talk about it.
Sure. Yeah.
And everyone cannot wait to tell you something terrible, or but people who graduate from RCSD are very prideful.
Yeah. No, listen.
They're
especially from Edison Tech. I know everyone it's one RCSD, right? One RCSD. Let's be real, but I like to think Edison, right? Don't give it, because I'll wax poetically. Anyone that know you, and I thought I was Mr. Edison. I guess is Jacob Scott, but Edison alumni Jacob Scott. But. I was engaging with alumni. You didn't really ask a question, I guess, but
no, that was it. Because, like I said, when I hear people talk about RCSD, when I hear certain school struggles, and I hear the people in my network who are doing amazing things who are graduates of RCSD.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's happening, so I'm not going to say RCSD is doing a bad job of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what are the efforts to coordinate alumni to get involved to these schools.
Yeah. So again, I started this back in 2006, right? And I started it because at the time, when I was coming up in the world, my dad, I wanted to go to Wilson, honestly, right? I wanted to go see about. Okay, so big up Wilson,
Well, okay.
West Side, West High School, but I wanted to go see about a girl. My mom was like, "No, you going to Edison?" I was like, "That's like, she's like, plus Wilson's West Side." I'm like, well, Edison's kind of far West Side, like that's where you're going. Your brother, your sister went there. Your dad worked there. That's where you're going. So my dad worked at the old Edison, on Hudson Avenue, Clifford there, and then at the new establishment there on Colfax when it first opened. And so, at the time when I was a student there, I didn't know we had alumni walking through. Like there was alumni among us. Like no one knew that there were staff members that were former alumni of Edison or just alumni, former students. And so, I established an alumni association to kind of build that network. I always had love for Edison. Edison's not perfect. Edison was never perfect. Who is, right? Yeah. But Edison has done a lot of harm, but also has done a lot of good. And so, you can show up into spaces, back to your point, you can show up to spaces and say, what's not working, but what is working? And how can we be, goal and action oriented in order to help improve? Take an inventory of what we do have, right, to utilize that, to leverage that for the impact of students. And so I created that organization, just to kind of, started with class of 01, my class. And then from there, I kind of spiraled out to start connecting with other alumni. And it's just continuously grown, from there.
Okay, so this, I didn't know you started it.
In 06, yeah. I'm the founder of the Edison Tech Network. But then when we went live, I'm the co-founder of the Edison Tech Alumni Association, myself, Jacob Scott, and then Kathleen Chaparnier. Yeah.
And that was going to be my question, because I was thinking that every school had some alumni association.
They
like,
do.
Maybe I should tap back into
they do. Again, I don't know. Okay. It's kind of ad hocly where you have classes that coordinate with each other, but nothing official. I actually ran into someone from the district right now, a teacher on assignment. Again, her name eludes me right now. It's my first time meeting her, but she was like, "Oh, hey, I heard about Edison. I was going to end up connecting with you to see how we can, kind of garner the efforts." In order to be able to, pull on those resources in order to, leverage that for the impact of the district. And I said, I'm all for it, however I can support. Because at the end of the day, it is still one RCSD. And we have alumni from all the high schools in Rochester doing wonderful things. I mean, we have alumni from Edison doing wonderful things. But, the mayor from Wilson, right? We have other people in spaces and places that are just doing wonderful things. And I think, we have to get in a space where we're looking at what we do have, taking inventory of that. Yeah. And then building on that, just really being solution. Like someone said, I think it's actually Miss Crocker from she's a DI officer for the RCSD. She said, we got to stop marveling at the problem. Mm-hmm. We often marvel at, let's become solution oriented. Let's marvel at the solution. Let's come up with solutions. Yeah. And so, Edison Tech has always been my pride and joy, and great things. And just when I think that, I've lost steam, I continuously have these moments where, Edison keeps coming back up, even in this role here. So I started to move now in this space of how can I leverage the Alumni Association for the alumni, for current students, but also for those that have slipped through the crack.
Yeah, I think that's great, especially now, in my current work, there's something that comes up a lot called a social capital.
Yeah.
And, it's very hard to put quantitative number or figure to
it. You can't.
But the amount of networks and the connections you have, to prepare you to other places, and then when you look at people who have been marginalized, or people in poverty, or people, they have, very small social capital, right? Sure. Or I like to tie it back to our youth, where, I'm so glad you mentioned the amount of people on your way up who've kind of molded and poured into you. And if you didn't have that, right? Because some people might be much different. Well,
and definitely the outcomes will be different. But I've always heard that one opportunity kind of begets another one. Mm-hmm. And so, even this situation here, when you reached out and said, "Hey, have you on the show?" I'm like, "Oh my God, what am I going to talk about?" I don't even know. You should have saw me. These things always make me nervous. I'm up at night. I got a crib sheet. I'm like, okay, say my name, right? Make sure you write your name. That's like 1,200 points. Vincent French. Don't forget your name. Like, what's your name? Bob. So I was like nervous, but you just really start taking inventory of what you do have. And I know a lot of times, again, people do not necessarily know what to look for and really assess. And so that's where that mentorship comes in. You know, I've always kind of been in like a mentor kind of space because people mentored me. So, you know, I had some good examples. But, you know, really helping individuals take inventory of what they do have and build that social capital. And as you say yes to one thing, it then opens up to other opportunity. And I got a chance, I mean, I see that myself all the time, but I got a chance to now help young students see that. You know, I'm an educator by profession. You know, like I said, I worked at School 8, cut my teeth in New York City, worked at School 8, and then came home to Edison Tech, and then went to Pittsford as a director officer in Pittsford Schools, the first Black district level administrator, as some may have some shared with me, and then went on to work for Public Defender's Office, again at full circle moment. And you know, I see students all the time, my former students. You know, it's just weird to me, you know. And then they come back and start speaking to you, and it's like, yo, you sound like me. Like, I was recently on the phone with a gentleman named Mr. Pugh, connecting me with Minister Miss Munden. I'm sorry, Miss Munden. I'm gonna call you Miss Munden. But she's married now. I think it's like, I'm not even gonna mess up her last name. I apologize, but Miss Munden, she knows who she is. But she called me. She's like, yo, you know, do you remember Jay? And I'm like, yeah. And I put him on, and I was just like, he's like, Mr. French, what's up? And just waxing poetically of the things that he's done. He's like, French, when I hear him talk, all I hear is you, and I knew I had to call you. I'm like, thank you for that, because man, like, it's been a week. You know, like, and you need that. You need to know, like, stay on the wall, Nehemiah. You need to stay on that wall. There's work yet to be done. You know, so I count it all joy. You know,
when I first got into this space and working with primarily working with the youth, someone mentioned to me, I wish I remember who it was who said it, but they said two things that always think of, and you kind of reminded me of it is, one, you never know when you make the impact.
Never know. You
never know. Like, so it'd be years from now, or, you know, a lot of times, especially working with youth, you'll say things and you're thinking it's falling on deaf ears, or you feel like you're not there, but no, some things do stick. And then another thing is, all kids have mentors, rather intentionally or directly or indirectly. So it's always best to just try to model that behavior as best as possible. So thanks for sharing. We're going to get into some music. We ask our guests to recommend 3 songs. The first song we're going to play for you guys is the song that reminds Vincent French, or had a significant point in his childhood. So we'll get back to playing that and get back to the interview right when we get back. Thank you. Okay. All right, so that was it. That was first.
Okay.
I think it was good, man. It was a great conversation. I want you to know we have 21 listeners on.
Oh, nice. Because I got some, like, 3 folks here on live too.
Oh, okay.
So recording. Is that okay? I'm recording.
I think that's the record right now.
Oh, okay.
The highest I ever had was 18.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the thing about it too is we can't tell who's listening in their car.
Right.
So
true.
the only thing
True.
we can gauge it on
is streams.
Yeah.
That's good.
I appreciate you going live. One of my fraternity brothers told me I probably should start going live. But
what frat are you part?
Alpha 858. One, the newest initiative.
Spring.
I did see. Oh, so you here tonight? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. I don't
Sorry. Yeah. What? Let's see. We got that going. So yeah. So it's good to break. So I'll basically just come back and say, you know, what made you choose this song? You know, what significance did it have on your childhood? And then that'd be it.
Copy that.
And then we'll get back into your current role.
Okay.
And play another song, challenges. Yeah, it's like I said, it's just a conversation, man.
Right on. Appreciate you. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Good morning, Mr. Moore, Calvino. I see you, sir. Good morning, Judd. Benjamin Sims, what's up? Miss Danzy, I see you. Josie, good morning.
Significance in his childhood, Vincent. If you could elaborate on that, tell us why did you choose this song for have significance in your childhood?
Man, growing up in foster care with the Randolph family, that's Mr. Randolph, Frank Randolph. Shout out to Frank Randolph. He would play that like ad nauseum. He would be driving me around. This is like in the 80s, so you could like drive in the front seat, you know. And so he had like this Nissan. He had this Nissan pickup truck, you know, with the little 3 dashes on the front to open up the trunk, whatever. It was a gray. And he would play that song all the time. And I just loved it because it was that they're from Memphis, they're from down in Tennessee, and that band itself, it has a Tennessee sound, and so it just reminded me of them, and I loved it. It has some very progressive notes as you keep going through, and so it just kind of reminded me about life and just keep pushing on, you know. But it always reminded me of them, and when I looked up later in life, I was like, oh, they're from Memphis. That's why it makes sense, you know. Like they're from Memphis, the band is from Memphis, so this is all right.
That's good. So music played at least some piece in your childhood.
Oh, a lot, yeah. Like you can have a soundtrack for every situation you was in. You know?
Yeah, no, that's. I kind of feel like that's more true for me today when I was a child.
Not true.
Songs.
That one song.
You listen, you hear things differently now as an adult too.
Yeah. And I, it's not my favorite song of all time. But Sam Cooke, "A Change Is Gonna Come" is my favorite song of all time, like hands down. I mean, I have a lot of songs, but Booker T and the MGs is one of those songs that remind me of my childhood.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I love doing this exercise because it always puts me on to newer music or seeing what kind of music has shaped people.
Sure.
And some of the work they have.
Absolutely.
So I'm thankful of the 3 songs you recommended. One of them at least I have heard before. But the other 2 that we'll get into later, they're new for me and maybe they'll be new for the audience. And I'll be great to hear why you chose those songs.
Absolutely.
So getting back to the diversity officer for the public defender's office, if you can tell us what does that role entail? What does a day-to-day look like? Like what are some of the things that you work towards? It seems like while you're advocating for change and diversity in the public defender's office. Yeah.
So this work that the coordinator or the diversity coordinator was a new role that was established, right, to kind of encapsulate the work that was kind of already being done already, being led by the great Danielle Ponder, right? Okay. So she was there in that space doing this work officially, but like ad hoc. It wasn't a real title. She was still serving as a public defender in that space. But that work was important, and those that came before her saw that the work was important. The Monroe County legislature agreed. Joe Paperno, Tim Donner, and a few others. And then that work continuously being led by Judy Cianco, who's been in the office about 30 some odd years herself as in various leadership capacities. And so, under her auspices, we was able to create this position, or they were able to create this position. And so in this work, obviously I do workplace diversity, making sure everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. I mentioned this in various spaces. You start out doing that needs assessment, really just seeing what you have, what's working, what's not working, what needs to be, included, but also capacity building, right? Because, it's important to, as you do this work, that you build capacity, and so just because your heart's in it, you might not necessarily have the tools necessary to do the work. You're only as strong as support that you receive. And so day to day, I come in, and there's no day to day. And that's what makes it most interesting. Things that, when you come in, you don't know what you're going to get. It's like the life of a box of chocolates for me. You walk in, it's like, what are we doing today, French? Who knows? The
I got Forrest Gump on my top.
Oh, yeah, really? Yo, straight up. I think I was like 12 when that movie came out, man. There was so much quotes in that movie, man. But being in the office, working with attorneys, right? Working with various clients in different capacities, but a lot of it is going out into the community. So one of the things we do with the public defender's office, outside of just doing diversity work within the office, is going back to the community. So we'll have Know Your Rights, right? You'll have your tabletop events. We're at Juneteenth, we're at all those events. And while that's important, because representation is important, being in those spaces is important, being visible, right? Like I'm not just here in the courtrooms, but I'm also out here in the soup kitchens. I'm out here volunteering. I'm out here, putting up houses with Habitat for Humanity. I'm over here, pouring into students at various schools. And so this position was originally designed for like workplace diversity, but it's never the car. It's always the driver. And so, being in this space and having an educational background and the support of the office, I was able to then bring our attorneys and have them push into schools. We created a program called Defenders of Tomorrow program, which is, again, mentioned about that pipeline where I took over the internship. The Defenders of Tomorrow program now attaches ourselves in a more meaningful way versus just having high schoolers coming in for internships, or shadowing opportunities. We're now pushing into those schools in more intentionality, where students are now walking out with a CTE credit, right? And so we kicked off the program with Greece schools, at Odyssey. I'm sorry, I'm fumbling my words, at Odyssey Academy. With Corey Hepburn as the principal, and then, so with Carrie Ann Gant. She's my. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I know Thomas Gant.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah.
And they're involved in a lot of the tables
right.
as well. So
they're powerhouses, both of them. I got a chance to meet with him at the Clean State Act thing recently.
Yeah.
I keep hearing his name like Thomas Gant. You were there?
Yeah. We gotta. I gotta get him on here.
Yeah, no, you gotta have him on here. This guy, but God is good anyhow, and just being able to connect with these people, and again, it's that journey, and so again, having young students come through, having attorneys push in. We're at various schools across the county, not just our CSD schools, but we're in all those spaces because advocacy can be found anywhere. Everyone needs advocacy. Everyone needs to know that this is who we are. And it also helps change that lens. Let's be real, right? Like when I was growing up, I make a joke about it, but it was the Office of Public Defenders, right? But these attorneys, they have the same credentials as your favorite attorney, a private attorney. If not better. We have attorneys that went to Harvard. Mr. Turner, who heads up our family court, his wife is Karen Bailey Turner, KBT. The Honorable, right? Make sure you put some respect on the name. But he went to Harvard with Obama, with the Obamas at two different times, with Michelle and then Barack. And, we have folks that went to Yale and to Cornell, into other spaces, Albany. At the end of the day, our attorneys, not to sell anything. I feel like I'm selling like the office here, but, they don't have the luxury of saying no. As attorneys serving as public defenders, we do this work because this is what we do every day. We continue to sharpen our saw, to use a Covey reference, right? To sharpen our saw for the work at hand. And so as we do this often, we have one of the largest, quote unquote, law firms within the area, with diligent attorneys doing the work every single day, to ensure that we stand in between, the accused and their constitutional rights, to ensure that they're being represented, because everyone deserves fair representation. Yeah. What I'm saying? No matter what the allegations are, everyone deserves that. And so we often see, those rights being infringed upon, right? Out of a lack of not knowing, right? That's that exploitation of systemic ignorance. If you don't know what you don't know, I'm not about to tell you. Let's keep, let's just keep doing what we're doing. And then, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I didn't know. Yeah, sorry about that. We now, like 30 years later, you realize, you can't do that. Oh, now you catch us. But
education is important,
Education is important. You got
when it
to.
comes to law and marginalized communities.
They have to know their rights. They have to know their rights. And so we've been doing that, pushing, and that was a kind of a long explanation. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I can prattle.
That was good. No, okay. So there was a bunch of things you said that I'm trying to figure out which avenue to go down. But I was thinking of our interview we had last week, because you talked about workplace diversity and taking care of staff, and making sure. And the guest we had last week is one of her dissertations that she's proposing is mental health in the workplace.
Oh yeah, what?
Yeah,
that's
and how we maybe as a culture we probably should do more when it comes to mental health and taking care of our employees. Especially we look at the public defenders who probably what they're listening to, what they're hearing, some of the cases they have to defend. Yeah. Is there anything in your work that kind of hits on, or try to kind of makes it a safe space, or that is kind of rooted, some practices rooted in making sure that everyone is well mentally? Absolutely.
And so Monroe County, naturally, they have a wellness committee. But we are looking at establishing a wellness committee within our office, and that work has already started without the establishment of a wellness committee. But I kind of want to codify it so that it's more purposeful. But one of the things we do is ensuring that our attorneys have access to mental health. Obviously we have our employee resources that they provide through health insurance, right? I think EPA, something like that. I forgot what it's called. and I don't mean to make light of that by saying that, but you know, we have partnered with Perry, Partners in Restorative Initiative. You know who they? Yeah, awesome work. I first got introduced to them when I was in Pittsburgh, when we had them come out and help do our training for our staff out there with our community building circles, all the circle work, and then our restorative justice circles as well. So with that mindset, I wanted to bring that into the office as well for the training for our attorneys. But then also there was a wellness package that they had where we sit down and we had our attorneys go through like this wellness workshop, a 3 or 4 hour session. We have several sessions of these that are going to be happening throughout the year. We just had our last one like in October, November-ish. And so it was great. It was great. And it allowed our attorneys and staff as well to just hold space for themselves. Because again, you have that trauma. Right, and a lot of our folks can be empaths, and so it's important that we make sure that we provide that support because again, you're only as strong as support that you receive.
Yeah, and I think and it's just me personally talking, not my employer or my family or anything, but I think a lot of the challenges that we face in Rochester, specifically in the social service spaces, it's like a lot of unhurt people, trying to help hurt people.
No, truly. Truly. You mean unhealed people?
Unhealed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, unhurt. Show me who hasn't been.
Right. But I think about that, and of course, we always look at trauma related to very extreme things or related to children. Yeah. But I would think, dealing with some of these cases, at the public defender's office has to be traumatic.
No, it definitely. Sorry.
Yeah. No, and I was thinking, that also, if trauma dictates how children behave, and adults as well, right? As they go and look at certain cases, if they're not taking care of themselves and not well mentally, it might change how they approach the cases.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking that that probably is something that I'm glad to hear that there's some things that are done to to
and
sure
in our current. I can only speak for me right now in my observations. I can't speak for past administration, but Julie Sianka, the public defender Julie Sianka, is a proponent of that. Doors always open kind of thing. Unless there's like a meeting because someone's coming in to talk, like doors always open. And she's very big on supporting the mental health, wellness, and just overall wellness. And even in this work I've done to continuously help support, and I kind of provide some of that support too within the office with some of our attorneys and staff as well too. So
cool.
Yeah.
Going back to education, and I know you mentioned a lot of the education you do is primarily maybe in school settings or with the youth. What are some of the things that are the top things you make sure you want youth to understand about law or about public defender's office? What are the things that you kind of educate them with so when they're out there they can make better decisions? Yeah, it's important.
Again, it's important to be informed. I conveyed to you earlier that that systemic ignorance. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. No one's going to tell you. You can't say, "Oh, I didn't know I could do." Well, now you know. G.I. Joe. Here's your ticket. Whatever. It's like that's how you find out. Like, well, now you know. Fire's hot, water's wet. Yeah. But when I'm in those spaces, obviously having them understand what the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights are. That's paramount. That's like boilerplate standard. You know what I mean? Oftentimes, it's great because you push into these spaces, you have attorneys there, and they'll pratter off, some stuff on law and order. It's like these extremes. It's like law and order stuff, but then you have someone that's like, "Wait, have you been reading like Black's law book? Like, have you? Do you have a law book under your asking all the questions?" It's like, well, you don't really need us, do you, per se? You just wanted to validate what you were saying if it was true. But yeah, good on you. But the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights are important, but also just teaching young people that their voice matters. Even when it's shaky, your voice has power, right? And that it's important to speak life. It's important. I'm not just talking about law. I'm talking about just a human experience in general. That it's important to speak life into every situation you're in, to know who you are, to know whose you are, to understand, your rights. Because again, people are looking to separate you from your rights, to exploit that systemic ignorance. And so getting young folks there and helping them at the same time, this is just a vehicle really, for like a glorified mentorship. But just being in that space to have students understand that, advocacy is everything, that they need to use their voice, right? They need to self-advocate, to leverage their position no matter what it is for the advocacy of someone else that's not in that room. I'm a firm believer that even for you, CJ, that, people are advocating for you in spaces that you're not even in.
Yeah.
Right? How'd you get here? Someone advocated for you. I got home my own merit. Did you though? No, did you? Someone said, "Hey, call CJ," and then oh, you know what? Oh, I guess he is qualified. And then boom, I'm just just being
No,
silly right
that's
now,
no, you're 100% right. I actually tell people I get too much credit.
Oh.
I get way too much credit.
Yeah,
You know, if I didn't have a praying grandma, if I didn't have the mother I had, if I didn't have the aunts and the uncles I had, and the cousins I had, the teachers and administrators, it'd be different for me too.
And that's what you say. And going back to that point too, I know you're trying to transition, but to that point there's an untapped power in gratitude. Yeah. Right? We need to start saying thank you more. Like not just hey thank you. Like that's important, but like really assessing. Don't sit here and say, you know, what you don't have. I didn't have a mom, I didn't have a dad. I didn't have a mom and dad either. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I had other people that was willing to step up that says nay. You know, when one of us fall, we all do what we can do. Mm-hmm. You know, so I kind of enjoy, and you know, even in the tough situations, I often say, you know, never curse the ground you come from, no matter how stony. You know, like, use that one. No, please. I just, it was this very, probably like the one sagey thing I ever came out with after pondering for like hours, you know, going up to the mount, talking with a monk, you know, came back with a sprig of like knowledge, like, he told me never, you know what I mean? Like, to like, never doubt yourself, you know. He said, go, you know. But yeah, never curse the ground you come from, no matter how stony. You know, and so, you know, as I go through life, you know, and helping students understand that, you know, you're going to have to sometimes do those 10 things to do that one thing you want to do. But don't look at it as like the setback. Why gotta do these 10 things just to do that one thing I want to do? Because that's all capacity building. The process. Trust the process. Yeah.
So I know every day isn't rainbow and skittles and glitz and glamour. I'm sure you face some challenges, you know, working in diversity space. Yeah. Even more specifically, I mean, you know, we just got to talk about it. I know the DEI wave in certain areas of the country is going opposite direction, right? So colleges are, you know, losing funding or chain businesses. Yeah. So, you know, in this diversity space in Monroe County, you know, as much as you can say, you know, of course, being an employer and, you know, I'm an employee, but, you know, what are some challenges that you kind of face with trying to, I guess, change mental models or trying to get people to see the value in this work?
Again, I like how you say it's the mental models. You know, oftentimes how I approach this work is trying to get individuals to see themselves in this work. You know, we have to be, you know, I always tell students, I tell interns, I tell staff, I tell myself, you know, we often say, you know, as a radio host, as a working as an attorney, whatever profession you're in, it's what kind of human do you want to be? You know, what kind of human you want to be, because that dictates how you show up in spaces, whatever you're doing. You know, as a human being, as a sanitation specialist, I might not dump that garbage can on the ground after I dump it in the trash. I might sit it up right. You know, you come out like, yo, you couldn't just sit my garbage can up, like, you know. And now I just made that relationship with this client of ours, as I'm, you know. So just what kind of human you want to be is something that I often think about. I'm getting off tangent of your question, so can you please rephrase it?
No, yes. Just about you know, how do you change mental models, or what challenges that you kind of face while you're trying to change mental models around this work? And I know you mentioned you know, getting people to see themselves in this work.
And that's the barrier, right? Because again, now the information today is so pervasive. I mean, you know, just this morning on the way to work, I had like 10 different things I was listening to, like 10 different news stories. And so, you know, everyone approaches things based off their experiences, based off their lived experiences. And, you know, you don't want to ever, like, you know, invalidate that, right? But, you know, you want them to understand that this work is important because it's about humanity. And I understand that in certain practitioners, how DEI is done, or, you know, some of the, you know, no one system is perfect. So it can be divisive here and there, but, you know, we really we can be more united than we are. Yeah. And so I can't necessarily codify how that looks, because it looks different for each person as I connect with them and meet with them. Again, a person looks different in this work. I have to have them see themselves. It's like it's equity within itself, right? It's like how this looks will look different for you. It'll look different for me. You know, just because you and I present black doesn't mean that we have the same experience.
That's very true.
Right? I don't monopolize on that. I'm black. I'm blacker than black, y'all. It's like you can't monopolize on that. You know what I mean? So, and that's just growing up trying to like, oh, you sound different, right? You sound, well, your parents were your parents of a different hue? And it's like, no, they were from Memphis. They were from Carolina. They were from Faison. You know what I mean? Like, they were from the country. They ate chitlins on Christmas. You know what I mean? Like the good ones from in Clemens, like the double bleach, triple bleach ones. You know,
I can have a whole radio show dedicated to that.
Not true.
You know, when I really found out that, like, you know, what they say, all skin folk and kin folk.
Not true. Hey, true.
I find that out professionally.
Yeah.
And that's a hard time.
That's
to
hard. You should have came in knowing.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, no, that's all right.
Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna get back to some music. You're listening to the Crush Hour on WAYOLP Rochester. You recommended this is a song that helped you get through a challenging time.
Yeah.
And it's the artist is it Abuka Songs?
Yeah, that's his name.
And the song is Calling My Name. I'm gonna start it softly, but if you could tell the listeners what significance this song had, and what how does this song how does it speak to you to get you through challenging times?
This song was great because it spoke to just my background, my tribulation, falling through the criminal element, and then spiraling about those situations. And we feel like that your season, your time is at hand, kind of thing. And you feel like oftentimes that you lost time. But for me, my faith has always been something that kind of grounded me, and that there's no wasted time. That everything you go through, you know what I mean? Yeah. Sorry.
Get it out, man. It's Monday.
Right.
It's
a brand new year, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be cleansed in this new year, walking in, cathartically,
Yeah.
But, that when it comes to your purpose, when you have that anointing in your life, when you have that call, when you have that passion, that there's no wasted time, that I had you go through all those situations, whether you wanted to or not. I allowed it to be so for this very moment. And I find myself pulling on those experiences, on those lived experiences, and that there's no wasted time. There's no wasted seasoning, right? There's no wasted seasoning, right? With the salt of the earth, no, just on time. Just on time. And so this song kind of speaks to that for me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'll be back with the Crush Hour in a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like this song too, man. Like I said, I listened to my grandma last night. I'm like, man, they put me on. Update my playlist.
Nah, songs, man. Songs are the elixir, man. It's what gets you through. Songs are powerful, man. Wars have started over since. People have come to the earth with songs,
So I'll get into the future of you, or the future of Rochester, and how do you think your role is in the future of Rochester.
Sure.
I ask you if you could trade places or have coffee with one leader in Rochester, who would it be and why? And then typically always ends with what's the best piece of professional advice you ever received? It's either that or the best advice you ever received.
That's
period.
fine. Yeah.
So however you feel comfortable answering that, and that'd be it.
Cool.
We'll probably end around
on that 10-minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna stop this after. I gotta log in. That's other part too. So I got a lot more respect for DJs now. Like I said, you my 10th episode, but all this sound stuff, and you gotta log each FCC. You gotta log everything you play on the radio.
Oh, really? Okay. For streaming.
Yeah. When I put it up to Mixcloud, they'll have a track list of what songs are played.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the who's the company that tracks Nielsen ratings?
Yeah.
Good morning, Jessica. Good morning. Oh, Jessica Crippeterra is on here. Mr. Rich, good morning. Jeremy, good morning. Victor, what up? Shout out to my brothers, Victor, Andre, I see you. Tina Redding, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Mr. Tim, Mr. Felton, good morning. Narrator, former student of mine. Carrie Beeman, good morning. Cleon, I see you. You know Cleon de Florence, right?
Who?
Cleon de Florence from Let's Get Lit.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Minister Florence's granddaughter.
Yeah.
Clifford Florence's daughter. Yeah, she does Let's Get Lit. So that's that advocacy, that's that literacy stuff that I'm on too.
Yeah.
On our board. Yeah.
Man, you might talk about that.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. I even brought it because you mentioned it in the thing, like literacy advocate. So. But that's part of the work too, as far as the future stuff. So I'll mention that.
So it's about to take about 45 seconds.
No problem.
So that's the record right now. 21 people, 21 listeners.
Oh, nice.
You know, you hold the record.
Hopefully
I think the previous was 18.
Oh, okay. Until tomorrow.
I do this every month, every week. I don't know if other people have a lot more listeners.
Sure. Well, we'll continue to build that platform.
Yeah.
You know, never despise humble beginnings, right?
That's true. Yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah. And like I said, and we'll talk about it a little bit more after. But this is, like I said, this is all nonprofit. Like this is all volunteer. The whole radio station is volunteer.
Oh, okay.
So no one gets paid. That's why we can't talk about
sure.
In
particular products.
Things we can't because everyone is a volunteer. No one gets paid.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful enough that they do enough fundraising to host this studio.
Right, to keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on. So and this is something new they put. I've never seen this, but it was a topic of the week talking about, and the focus was focused on the good, not the bad.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna text them and see what like is this something they want us to mention or not? Because every once in a while they'll say, hey, this week, we're trying to fundraise for this. Make sure you mention it. I don't want to say anything. So
yeah, well, it's like a bright spot, right?
Yeah.
How you in the bright spot?
Good morning. You're listening to the Crush Hour on WAYLP Rochester. I'm here with Vincent French. You just finished listening to some music. That was a book of songs, and the title is "Calling My Name."
Yeah.
We're getting closer to the end of the interview, but I really wanted to bring up something because it's important to me, and I'm so grateful that you're doing this work. But if you could, you've been ambassador and educator and supporter of literacy in schools, and you mentioned an organization that you're working with. But tell us, how did you get involved in trying to enhance literacy in Rochester for our youth?
Again, by profession, thank you for this question, by the way, too, because it's important, right? By profession, I am an educator by profession, and I did some literacy work when I was at School 8 working with some students there in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, teaching students how to articulate sounds and words and whatnot. But that work's important, especially with the background that I have here, in this current position here, with the Monroe County Public Defender's Office about literacy rates. The correlation between literacy rates and the number that's incarcerated, right? So that and y'all can look that up on your own, but because we're just having a conversation here. But working with Cleonda Florence, she's the founder and CEO and president of Let's Get Lit. And she's done tremendous work. I mean, again, this is the granddaughter of the late great Minister Franklin Florence, who spearheaded the fight to help create equitable change in Rochester, social change and economic change in Rochester, and other things too, not to diminish the work of fighting all those that were part of that work. But she's carrying on that legacy through literacy, going through working with schools, and now she's pushing into schools, working with different community members, hosting her own summer camps, what have you, and summer literacy sessions. And so I had a chance to connect with her in various spaces, like just bumping into her, and then it was through her work with Perry when I had her come through the office to attach Perry to the office. That at the time she was with Perry working as the I think co-director of Perry Partners in Restorative Initiative, and so that's how we kind of connected. And she kind of shared with me, and now I'm on the executive advisory board, helping to lead some of that work, and she's done amazing things. I was recently past summer at a community give back, where she had tons of people there. Obviously, local leaders was there too, but just various corporations, various local businesses donating books. Our literacy is important, and literacy starts with the human voice, and having our children be able to articulate themselves in such a way allows them to be able to comprehend, right? Like, we find and it doesn't matter who they are, literacy just in general. I often see like a lot of domestic case situations where she was talking crazy to me, whatever. It's like if you just take a moment to read, to articulate your words, to build that vocabulary. Word acquisitions happens with reading, not with like aardvark, looking through the dictionary. Remember, you had to write.
No, trust me. Like
using English class, writing them different.
No, I talk about it all the time because my mother, whenever I would ask her how to spell something, she would make me grab the dictionary and find a word.
Right.
So it's just different.
Sound and blend.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's just different now. I don't have kids. I think parenting is one of the most difficult things.
Oh man, COVID kind of shined light on that too. I think
seriously?
for everybody.
Yeah, but I do remember, and because I was going to ask you, like, what I know you mentioned you have children, but
3,
how often do you make them read, or is that a part of like a nighttime ritual? But I remember you know, if we ever told our mom we was bored, she would make us clean something or read something.
So I try not to use you start building a strong, you know, you just oppose reading because it was always punishment. I hate writing. I have this callus on my hand from writing so much. So I try not to use those things. My kids, they love reading. Yeah. Like I used to be a book hoarder, so when I see my kids hoarding books in their room, I can't be mad because you can't parent you out of your kids. But I say, okay, you know, what doesn't bring you joy? I try to do that. Like, you know, they all bring me joy. No.
Can't parent you out of your.
No, when my kids be doing wild stuff, I'm looking at them like, no, that was me. That was me. You know, I have to call my foster mom. Was I? Yeah, you did a lot. You did, you know. But you know, they love to read, and you know, I used to read to them, again, literally starts with human voice. I used to read to them when they were in the womb. You know, it's very cliche. It's like you're sitting there with headphones on your belly, you know, you reading to them. You know, and kids, they sponges. They pick up on things. My son comes down. He can tell me all about sharks. He's only 4 years old. And do you know that sharks have a weird teeth line? I'm like, bro, like, they have a weird body shape. Weird body shape? You mean a BMW? Body made weird? Like, what? Yeah. Like, no, but they just read, and they be coming at me saying some stuff. I'm like, yo, who are you talking to? Like, I know I'm talking to them. I get that, but it's like, that's not from me. I didn't tell you that. Like, and I'm saying taking notes. I'm not for babes. Didn't even know, you know, and so, but reading is important. You know, I can't stress that enough. And you see, I mean, reading has always been attacked throughout centuries. Burning books, banning reading, right? Like, you just look at where reading was banned and why. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's the number one case for it, right? Like, buy all the books. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know what's funny, because like I said, trying to change the narrative on students and how they process information, you know, and there's just this, you know, people just think that like kids, you know, younger kids don't read anymore. So trying to find more ways to get them involved or wanting to read. Yeah. One of the things that kind of made me, or a tool that I had, is finding out the amount of rappers who kind of got their vocabulary based on, you know, always wanting to read. Yeah. And, you know, if you can use that to motivate, you know, aspiring rappers and musicians to read, like, hey, you get your vocabulary up. You know.
You want to know when I first realized that there was some smart rappers out there? Man, it was like in the 90s. Daz Effects, they want effects. They got master degree. They say, yo, he got a master degree. Wait, what? Like, I don't know why I thought like they just became rappers.
Well, you know why? Because that's how they portrayed it in the media. Everyone's a thug. And
but he was like, yo, I said, yo, you know Daz Effects? That's like, and I like Daz Effects because they got master degrees, fam. Like, you know, like that was dope.
There's a couple rappers that got degrees. You know, people don't.
And then Chuck D out here talking. You know, you got Chuck D, you got Wu-Tang out there at college universities now. They got whole classes. You know, like, whoa, they out here actually. You know, you got RZA out here, college professor. You know, the dude. What's the one from Wu-Tang that's always...
is it RZA?
No, it might be Jizza, actually. Inspector Deck?
No, I don't know.
But one of them talks about, like, astrophysicists and all this.
I think it's RZA. I think RZA... Well, okay.
RZA does, but no, it's not RZA. It's someone else. I want to think it's Inspector Deck, I think. You know, but anyways, Breaker 19, clear the line. But he... but it's obviously someone from Wu-Tang. But they're just seeing how they traverse, right, and how they transcend from those spaces. You know, they're not just rappers; we're other things. Everyone's multifaceted, right, and that's really the diversity of it all, right? Really pulling on that, seeing who this person is, how they can fit, and that's kind of what I do as well too in this space. And I know we're kind of running out of time, but you know. My intention in this capacity, while working in the public defender's office, you know, is my base of operation. You know, I'm very fortunate. I count it all joy to be able to still be in those spaces, meeting with superintendents, meeting with diversity champions throughout Rochester in this region. We're in Farmington, Canandaigua, Holly, Brockport. Everyone's doing this work. You know, and I think oftentimes, you know, again, back to your original questions, like the barrier is people are having a hard time seeing themselves in this work. They don't understand that it's important to plant trees for, plant the seeds for the tree that they might not sit in. But what I'm finding, oftentimes not, is that you are be able to sit in those, you know, and those trees aren't necessarily the opportunities that you hope to create, but it's the students. Because again, when the students always see me before I see them, they always come back. I got students now hitting me up talking about they're staff sergeants or they work for NYPD. I'm like, when? Just last week I was writing you up for walking in the hallway as a 7th grader. Now you a full-fledged adult?
Fast. I think like, you work with youth, time speeds up. You see him in traffic driving at red lights now.
Like, yo, you out here just, I told you look both ways, man. Like, you know. But I'm just thankful, man, and just continuously leveraging the capacity of people in humanity and demanding more from each other as we continue to grow.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday. You could be anywhere in the world, but you decided to stop through the Crush Hour. We appreciate it.
How cold is it outside?
It's cold.
It's okay.
Last question, and maybe 20 seconds or less, if you could tell us, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I ever received was simply to journal, man. To journal, to write. I've always been a writer. I've always journaled. I go back through my journals. I talk about my wife, Carmen. Shout out to my wife, Carmen Bailey French, and just the Bailey family in general. And I wrote my life out a long time ago as I was coming up in the world, going through those traumas and those stresses in life and poor decision making, right? But I realized that the things I wrote down, envisioning concretely, who I wanted to be, manifesting those things have come to fruition. Even the woman I wanted to marry, like I told you how I met her that one night at RIT, like. That's the woman. That's they say they always know. Yeah, like maybe 8 out of 10, but like she was the one. And journaling has been an eye opener for me because it helped me to be able to put my thoughts on paper in my aspirations and dreams, but kind of game plan should be a little more strategic in life. Okay. And journaling is like giving your blueprint to the universe. Giving your blueprint to God and allowing those things to be. It says, write the vision upon tablets that he who reads it run. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2 and 3. For the vision yet for the appointed time, in the end it shall speak, shall not lie, though it tarry, wait for it, it shall surely come. Wow. So I'll end with that.
I appreciate that. Thanks again for being here. Stay tuned on Wayo. We have Cosmic Debris coming on at 9 a.m. Thank you again, Vincent French. We have one more song that we're going to play out, lead out with. Yeah. And this is Elmo Shine. Yeah. Thanks again for tuning into the Crush Hour. We're here every Monday at 8 a.m. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your Monday.